We're living in the age of peak screen time. Tech companies are in an all-out war for our attention, and their weapon of choice? Smartphones. Frustrated by my own ridiculous screen time, I've spent the last 6 months trying an experiment, turning my smartphone into a dumb phone. If you're new here, my name's Francis. I'm a psychology graduate from Cambridge and UCL, now studying at Oxford. In this video, I'll walk you through my dumb phone setup, the iOS and Android equivalents you can try, and importantly, the real positives and negatives of this experience, because some solutions felt helpful, but actually hindered my progress. My motivation for this was I was sick of my screen time. I did 7 or 8 hours a day, which, if you extrapolate over a year, is 128 days a year on my phone. Some days I'd hit double digits, and my record, I think, is 13 hours, which, given you have to sleep, eat, work, socialize, I don't understand how it's physically possible for me to go on my phone for that long. Now, I rarely use my phone for more than 2 hours, which might not sound like a huge achievement to some people, but for me, it's a huge change from what I was doing before. And when I do use my phone a lot, it is to message people and interact with people directly rather than doom scrolling on social media. You might be thinking, why not just buy a real dumb phone? I definitely considered this, but modern life has too many demands to get away with a phone like this. The moment I step out of the house, I'll put Google Maps on to get where I'm going, I might put some music on, I might text people using the touchscreen keyboard, and if I take a picture of something, I want it to look good and not potato quality. Those are the reasons I chose to convert my existing smartphone into a dumb phone. So what does my dumb phone look like? The journey started with the visual appeal. I saw these minimalist phone setups on YouTube, and I thought, this looks so clean, I need to try it. Inspired by Reisu, I tried O Launcher on my Android, which changed my home screen setup to just have a couple of core apps on the home screen, an apps drawer which was a list, and that's it. But after using it for a while, I quickly realized I needed way more apps to be easily accessible. I could put a maximum of 8 apps on the home screen, so finding other apps I needed was actually more time consuming to get to than my original colorful home screen. I needed something else, which led me to try Before Launcher, and that costs $4.95 for the premium version. The advantage of Before Launcher is you can add more apps to the home screen and you can create folders. So that makes the original home screen look less cluttered, but you can still easily access all the essential apps you need. For a while, I tried to get rid of icons completely, so it was just text on the screen. But this created a problem where I have 3 authenticator apps on my phone, all with the same title. So without icons, I couldn't tell which one was which. I have put icons back on my home screen, but there's an option in Before Launcher to make them black and white. Recently, I tried going back to my original colorful home screen just to check if I was actually getting a benefit. After a few days, I was definitely getting sucked back into my phone more. So I think it is still important to have a minimalist home screen. The second component of the dumb phone is a good screen time manager. They have built-in apps for this, like Digital Wellbeing on Android and Screen Time on iOS. You'd think these apps would be the most effective at managing screen time because they're built in. After using Digital Wellbeing for a while, I realized that it felt like those gambling adverts that tell you to gamble responsibly, but also bet on all of these different events. For example, I tried the app timer feature, which lets you set time limits on specific apps. I put YouTube as an hour to start with. When I got to the hour limit, it would tell me I was out of time, but also put a button there to add an extra 15 minutes. If you're an hour deep into a doom scroll and your choice is to quit entirely or just grab yourself another 15 minutes, my willpower isn't strong enough to resist that, and it crumbled quite quickly. It's like doing the marshmallow test, which is this old psychology experiment where they had children resist eating a marshmallow for 15 minutes in order to get a second one. A lot of children ate the first marshmallow before the time was up, and so didn't get the reward of the second. And it claimed that these children went on to lead lower quality lives than the children who could resist the marshmallow for 15 minutes, which is pretty depressing. So with my poor relationship with gratification, I got to a point where I was annoyed that my phone was asking me whether I wanted to add 15 minutes to YouTube. And so I just changed my overall time limit to be a bit longer and then a bit longer. And I eventually set it to 3 hours for YouTube. And one day I hit that limit and I thought something has gone drastically wrong here. Another thing about Digital Wellbeing is that it didn't let me see much data. It wouldn't let me see my screen time from before a month ago. So all the numbers I was getting kind of felt out of context and I couldn't track my trends over time. I haven't found a way to address this second problem, but With the first problem, it led me to ScreenZen, which is available on both iOS and Android. This has been a far more effective solution for me because I think it uses psychology principles in a more effective way. Instead of blocking apps entirely, it just introduces friction before you open them. For example, when I tap on YouTube, it asks me, is this important? And has me wait 1 minute before I can get in. And my options are unlock, which I can't press, or don't unlock, and then it closes my app again. Once I am into YouTube, I can watch it for 5 minutes before it kicks me out again and makes me wait another minute before continuing to watch. This means I can access YouTube for legitimate reasons, like watching cooking tutorials while I make dinner, but the friction of that initial delay prevents that automatic doom scroll momentum from building up. It's like putting sweets at the back of the supermarket rather than by the checkout. It disrupts that impulse purchase and you have to walk all the way to the other side of the supermarket to buy it, which is why supermarkets charge a premium to have your items put by the checkout or at the end of an aisle. And the great thing with ScreenZen is it lets you block specific websites. Even if I try to access youtube.com in my browser, it still introduces a 1 minute delay. And by the time the minute ends, that urge is usually subsided. You can set the timer to whatever you would like, but I think it's good that ScreenZen works with our impulsive nature rather than fighting it head on. And remember the marshmallow study? Newer research suggests that there isn't really a long-term difference between the children who could resist eating the marshmallow and the children who couldn't. So don't beat yourself up if willpower isn't your strong suit. Interestingly, this process also made me think about semi-productive phone habits like checking the news.
I don't watch the news.
I don't put that in the same bucket as scrolling on YouTube, but I found this year that scrolling through the news and reading lots of often depressing headlines felt the same way as when I'm just scrolling on YouTube Shorts. So I also blocked the news websites I read the most regularly that haven't really missed it. The last component of my dumb phone setup is about notifications. So initially I went nuclear and blocked all notifications on my phone, which is kind of like removing the doorbell from your house. You don't get any of the spam callers or junk mail anymore, but you also miss out on the important stuff. So actually, while doing this made my phone quieter, I ended up checking things more in case I'd missed an important message from someone. The solution for me was selective notifications. So only the essentials get through, messages from other people, banking alerts, and calendar reminders. Everything else I silenced, so no notifications for things that don't matter immediately. So all of these things have been helpful for me to reduce my screen time from the 7 or 8 hour mark down to less than 2, but I know I've not made a perfect system. So I'm keen to hear anyone else's ideas on how to improve my setup. For me, I'm thinking of 3 things. So firstly, changing the physical feed of apps. If you look at social media apps from 10 years ago, there were far fewer addictive components than there are now. Today, everything has endless algorithm-driven feeds and stories, and you have to update the apps to continue using them. So while these apps do have legitimate uses, they're getting obscured more and more by the components designed to keep you addicted. I'm going to try and get apps that let me change the interface of social media to get it somewhat back to how it was like 10 years ago. Second, I'm going to try and use voice assistants more, like ChatGPT or Gemini, because if I'm using a voice assistant, I'm not physically on my phone and I can't doom scroll in the same way. Third, I'm going to aim to touch grass, try and find some physical real world activities I can do more. Who am I kidding? Third, I'm going to try and find a better screen time tracking app that provides long-term data and combines data from my phone with data from computers I use, because all of these things count as screen time and I want to reduce it in its entirety. So yeah, those are my ideas. Thank you for watching my video, and put your phone down.